Hi guys, I'm back with Adventures of Frog and Toad by Arnold Lobel, and I wanted to do take two on this story. I read it earlier, but the recording kind of went crazy, so I'm going to try it again, and here we go. Okay. This is called The Story. One day in summer, Frog was not feeling well. Toad said, "Frog, you are looking quite green." "But I always look green," said Frog. "I'm a frog." "Today you look very green, even for a frog," said Toad. "Get into my bed and rest." Toad made Frog a cup of hot tea. Frog drank the tea, and then he said, "Tell me a story while I am resting." And there they are. In its bed. You see the cute little dishes on the wall? That's a tiny little bed. "All right," said Toad. "Let me think of a story to tell you." Toad thought and he thought, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. I was thinking, right there. I wonder what time it is. 4:05. "I will go out on the porch and walk up and down," said Toad. "Perhaps that will help me to think of a story." Toad walked up and down on the porch for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Think. He's got thinker's block, writer's block, storyteller's block, something, having a hard time. Then Toad went into the house and stood on his head. "Why are you standing on your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I stand on my head, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. It's not a very restful environment right now, I'm thinking, for a sick day. Standing on his head. Trying to feed his brain. It's nice blood flow. Toad stood on his head for a long time, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. And last time this got to me, but I don't know if you'll notice. There he is, standing on his head. It's pretty good. It does trouble me a little that his eyes are touching the floor. I can't help but notice that. I just don't think about how it is for frogs and toads and their eyes, that whole thing. Then Toad poured a glass of water over his head. This sounds like pranks. "Why are you pouring water over your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I pour water over my head, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. Toad poured many glasses of water over his head, but he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Splash! Right in the eyes. Then, it doesn't matter how many times I read this story, it always makes me laugh. Then Toad began to bang his head against the wall. "Why are you banging your head against the wall?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I bang my head against the wall hard enough, it will help me to think of a story," said Toad. "I am feeling much better now, Toad," said Frog. I don't think I need a story anymore." "Then you get out of bed and let me get into it," said Toad, "because now I feel terrible." Frog said, "Would you like me to tell a story, Toad?" "Yes," said Toad, "if you know one." And there he is. Oh, that's working hard there. Ooh, I'm busy. I don't feel too good. Yeah, I'm going to climb right back into that bed. Poor Toad. "Once upon a time," said Frog, "there were two good friends, a frog and a toad. The frog was not feeling well. He asked his friend, the toad, to tell him a story. The toad could not think of a story. He walked up and down on the porch, but he could not think of a story. He stood on his head, but he could not think of a story. He poured water over his head, but he could not think of a story. He banged his head against the wall, but he still could not think of a story. Then the toad did not feel so well, and the frog was feeling better. So the toad went to bed, and the frog got up and told him a story. The end." "How was that, Toad?" said Frog. But Toad did not answer. He had fallen asleep. Knocked out. Literally. Poor guy. That's the end of this story. The story. So I hope you had a good day today. I hope that you were a good friend to someone today. Maybe your brother or sister, your mom or dad, your kitten, your doggy, someone you got to talk to on the phone. I know that Toad was working really hard to be a good friend to Frog. Don't need to bang your head on the wall to do it or throw glasses of water over your head. That's funny. Just being kind, considerate, and maybe let your brother or sister go first when you're playing a game. Or if someone doesn't feel good, maybe they just have allergies or they don't just feel kind of yucky. Maybe say, "Hey, I'll go get you a dish of goldfish crackers," or something like that. Just the idea of just being kind to each other and making sure that that person knows that they matter. And when we practice that, you know what happens when you practice something? You get good at it. So practice being super sweet to your family and your friends right now. And you get really good at it. And they'll appreciate it too. It'll be awesome. Sleep good if you're reading this or watching this before bed. Sweet dreams. And have a wonderful night's sleep. And I'll see you soon with another story. Bye.